Come on. You know, where you set a partner or somebody, you know, somebody closer, you're begging them for a compliment. You want them to see. Can you tell when it's phony? They don't want to hurt your feelings, so they say it, and you're going, you don't mean that. Then the fight's on. You know what I mean? And it doesn't work, does it? It doesn't fill that place inside of us. And we know that they just said that to appease us because they fold under pressure. It never works well, and it doesn't last. It just falls from where it was. But that's one of the trickeries we try to do. We want to see ourselves as special. It's hard for us in the challenges of the day to walk in humble and not recognition, because we have to deal with lust and pride and envy and greed and temptation and all those things that start to fuel and fire. It's all about me. I. This is mine. I. There was a man that was, he was a very well-known evangelist. His name was D.L. Moody. And he had a conference that he put on in Massachusetts in the late 1800s, and a whole group of Europeans came, which they set him up in a dormitory. That's where the meeting and was going to be. And it was common in Europe, when you went to a conference, you took your shoes off and you set them outside. And then the hall servants would polish them all, and you would put the shoes back on. Well, in the U.S., there were not hall servants. And Moody, who was the big leader of this evangelistic movement and well-known, realized that it might be embarrassing when they open up their door and there's no shoes. So he took them all. And he tried to call it a few college students that were studying for the ministry to help him. None showed. I mean, who wants to go polish shoes? They didn't. You know, and he went ahead and started polishing shoes. And there was one other minister that came with him, and they did them all and put them all out. And he never told anybody. But the one that helped him had told a few people. And the next day, the foreigners opened up their door, and there were those shiny shoes. You know, Moody got it. He didn't tell anyone. But he took the insight of God, and God used Moody to be the servant. Moody, his greatest accomplishment was that he had a servant's heart. You know, we say that we're a church for all people. We say we want to comfort. We want to heal, and what is the last one? Serve. Which means we too must embrace having a servant heart, helping other people, having mercy on other people, seeing them and making them important in the world, recognizing them as a human being, that God created just that human being just to be that way. Learning the lessons the best we can. A servant heart and a touch of Christ leading us to the banquet. Here is a tool that works very well. When you get irritated or angry at a partner, a spouse, and a friend, and it feels like you're just stuck. Usually you're both in silent treatment, or one of them's yakking, the other one's not saying anything. I'm sure we've all been there. No. You know, when that impasse happens like that, both people will go back to something that was good and then work forward. It will totally change the conversation. For instance, when my grandma, whose name was Rosetta Viviana Hopetonia Johnson, 10 kids all had 4 names. She hated Hopetonia because they always called her hippity hop on the pot. They were dirt poor. My grandpa couldn't read or write. They think he was a runaway from an abusive home. Lots of times they didn't have jobs, and they lived with people because they had no home. And so they would go down to the river to get water. And if the water was ucky looking, they'd set the pail down and let it settle. And then they took this little silver pan. It's just a little silver pan. Not like that, and kind of did it up and had a handle. That was the dipper. When I got with my cousins, I realized that when the 3 sisters sat down to asked people if they wanted something from my grandma, I was about the only one that got anything. And I did not know that. And we're all standing there, and I said, well, I think I have 2 dippers and Mom has 1. And everybody goes, the dipper? Wasn't that the best water we ever drank? All that little pan that we all went and got and dipped in the water. You know, even when she moved into Powell, and the water came out of the spigot, you still used the dipper. And every single one of us went to this moment of our heritage, and we had joy. We had joy. It's another thing I want to tell you is that, you know, my grandma made $75 a month Social Security. She always made sure I had $1 on Christmas. She always made sure that she supported her Lutheran church. And she gave Billy Graham $5 every month for probably 80 years. She liked Billy Graham. That was my grandma. I mean, she never did drive. She babysat. She made a little money, you know, helping people, cleaning. She never had a lot, but she thought she was rich. She thought she had richness because every single time we came together for a meal, if it wasn't just a regular meal, but Thanksgiving when the whole family got together, or Christmas, or for a birthday or whatever, my grandma had the job of doing the prayer. And sometimes she'd look in the paper because they'd put a real good Thanksgiving prayer in there. But you know what she would always say? And let us be mindful of those who are less fortunate than ourselves. Every single prayer my grandma said was, let us be mindful of those who are less fortunate than ourselves. Because she thought she was rich. You know, they were so poor they had no really refrigeration. You know, they didn't. Grandma used to like when the gooseberries would come on because it'd be something different for a pie. You know? But as they looked off across the fields around Bear Creek, you know where that is, by Belfry, where they were born, they were the Belfry Bats. I'm glad I wasn't at school there. I don't like being a bat. I'd rather be a panther. But anyway, they would look off in the distance, and here would come this friend, and he'd be carrying a bag. You know what was in that bag? Ice. That meant Grandma was going to get out and milk the cow, and they were all going to have ice cream that night. Oh, how they loved seeing him come across the field. He was bringing ice, and they were going to get to have ice cream. There may not have been candy in that house, but occasionally there was ice cream and a different kind of pie. Different kind of pie. I wonder if I've thought of myself as rich. Probably I look at the checkbook, you know, who logically headed me. But am I rich? And I come to understand that we are all rich. We all have a place at the banquet. Amen. Unfortunately, I have Mom would say a burr under the saddle, which means if you got a cockabur under the saddle, you're going to have a horse that's going to dido on you. Those of you who ridden horses know what that happens. You don't want nothing under that saddle because they can be pretty jumpy. Last night as I sat on the porch, I said, God, do all our people in Montana know they have a place at the banquet? Are they finding a spiritual community in the towns and cities of Montana in which they know they were made to be who they are and they have a seat at the banquet? Are we missing some? You know, are there some less fortunate than us who've had not only one building but 2 buildings and a community to come to and a way to learn how to live a spiritual life and have spirituality within our relationship? Are we missing the boat somewhere? Because I want to put that prayer out there. I'd like to encourage you to do the same thing because there's a couple things that needs to happen. Number 1, Pastor Ricky and Paul need to get the butts back here. Yep. You know, so we've got another pastor to start working on some of that because I believe in my heart I hear someone thinking they aren't worth anything. That's right. And they're going to think about suicide tonight. I know that's happening. We have brothers and sisters that are probably stuck in an Assembly of God churches here, and they're trying to be not who they are. And they go and they know all the motions, when you lift your hands, when you sit down, when you get the Spirit, and then they go home and go, if they only knew.
Right.
If they only knew. So you know what you do? Then you go home and say, God, please change me. They tell me that I'm wrong, I'm a sinner. Please change me. And try as you might, you can't change the way God made you.
That's right.
You can't do it. If we could, we wouldn't even have the church.
That's right.
Most of us tried. Most of us tried. Most of us went out and tried to be with an opposite partner. Talk about awkward.
Yep.
Usually the guys we date is because they're good friends. And usually the guys date women that are, they date women that are going to protect them. I'll just say that much. If we could be different than we are, we would. This is like a straight person can't go, God, please don't make me straight. Please make me gay. I don't know why they do it, but some do. Some do. The whole thing is that we want that issue to be secondary to your spiritual life. I'm not going to be a pastor that puts GLBT, S and LNA, XA, UBA, or however many letters ahead of your faith.
Amen. That's right.
We are Christian first.
That's right.
We live that out in relationship differently.
That's right.
Not worse or not better, but differently. Trying to learn to love another person and trying to learn how to be mutual in a relationship with someone else and with our friends.
Amen.
So a part of being at this banquet kind of says to us, grow up. If we want to have a servant's heart, we have to grow up.
That's right.
We have to take all the things we want for ourselves, all the things that we throw little fits about, and all of us that have a stroke when the silverware are crooked on the table, and those of us who don't care, and those who can't wear clothes that aren't pressed and ironed, those who like raked up stuff, all those little idiosyncrasies that we have that makes us who we are. But we got to grow up, because you never know. You never know when you will be anointed to stand next to a cousin and embrace him with a Christ love and a hug, and she knew it was more than just me.
Amen.
God will use you anywhere in the most simple ways. Why? Because what does he say? Jesus says, bring the poor.
Yep.
Bring the mentally ill. Bring the people that have felt like they are abandoned from the church because they don't fit in. I guarantee if you touch them with that touch, you'll stand back and you'll just have one of those moments where Sylvia used to say, when God uses you and God moves, it's like having a nuclear bomb in a sandwich bag. That's pretty true. You just go, poof.
That's true.
The quote that I wanted to end with is a famous quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, a mature person is one who does not think only in absolutes, who is able to be objective even when deeply stirred emotionally, who has learned that there is both good and bad in all people and in all things, and who walks humbly and deals charitably with the circumstances of life, knowing that in this world no one is all-knowing, and therefore all of us need both love and charity.